Rulings from the Supreme Court today. One strikes down President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. The other siding with a website designer who refused to design websites for same-sex couples. WGN's Joel Hillary joining us now with more on these major decisions.
Yeah, Micah, so as we know, yesterday the Supreme Court ruled against affirmative action, and today, as you mentioned, two more really big button issues set to impact millions of Americans. In spite of today's defeat, President Joe Biden says he's determined not to give up.
We need to find a new way, and we're moving as fast as we can.
A sharply divided Supreme Court overruled the president's $400 billion plan to cancel or reduce federal student loan debts for millions of Americans.
My plan would not only have been life-changing for millions of Americans, it would have been good for the American economy.
In response to the ruling, Governor Pritzker in part says, with this latest decision, the court, stacked with some of the most elite college degrees on earth, told millions of low and middle income people that higher education should return to being predominantly the province of the wealthiest Americans. The president says he will now use the Higher Education Act as an avenue to offer relief to millions of Americans with college debt.
I will allow Secretary Cardona, who's with me today, to compromise, waive, or release loans under certain circumstances.
The High Court also ruled today that Lori Smith, a Christian graphic artist with a business called 303 Creative, can refuse to create a wedding website for same-sex couples. Today's ruling has many questioning the consequences of the decision.
I don't know what's going to happen in terms of a website designer, for instance, who wishes to not design a website for interracial couples.
In October 2022, Thomas More Society attorneys won the Tastries Bakery lawsuit, a similar case involving a cake designer named Kathy Miller who declined to create a custom wedding cake celebrating same-sex marriage. In response to today's ruling, an attorney with the law firm writes, "We are optimistic that the ruling in 303 Creative will protect all creative professionals involved in the wedding industry, including Kathy Miller." Political science professor Stephen Caliendo says the High Court's recent rulings favoring the conservative justices' opinions are stripping away hard-fought rights.
As we've seen last year in the Dobbs decision, and this year with the affirmative action cases in particular, and even with respect to LGBTQ rights, we're going back to an earlier time.
Well, student loan repayments have been on hold since the start of the pandemic. Those payments are set to resume in October. The president said his administration is creating a temporary 12-month on-ramp repayment program that will help eliminate the threat of default for those not able to pay their loans down.
All right, Joel, thank you. So joining us right now with his insight is the host of the WGN Political Report, Paul Lisnek.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Let's start with that loan forgiveness program.
Sure.
Biden a little upset when a reporter asked if he gave false hope to the 40 million borrowers out there.
Well, remember, President Biden doesn't take many questions, so when he actually take one, I think he knows what's coming. Look, he turned the issue political today. He lost it on the legal side, so he turned it political, and he pointed to two acts that he's going to use to try and let people get get this kind of program: the Higher Education Act and the on-ramp repayment program. But without getting into the details of the program, the bottom line is those will get challenged. And next year, on these very dates, we'll probably have the Supreme Court ruling on those efforts.
Back to Jules' report, the Colorado web designer who didn't want to do design work for a gay couple. Gorsuch,
which, by the way, can I tell you?
Yeah.
Nobody brought that case. Nobody complained. Nobody went to her and said, I want a same-sex marriage website. She didn't turn anybody down. In order to bring a case, you have to have standing. There's got to be jurisdiction. It had neither, and the court took it anyway, which meant they decided to deal with a hypothetical.
So it was an imaginary couple,
Yeah,
really.
yes,
but,
yes.
But where do you see this potentially leading to? I mean, it opens up a whole gamut of new discrimination that could happen.
Well, and you heard Professor Caliendo say it's taking us back in time. I don't think there's any doubt, because look, the court, they always like to say, we don't mean this and that, whatever. Remember that Clarence Thomas in the abortion case said, bring me same-sex marriage. I want to deal with that too. The abortion issue was a 50-year process of getting there, right? And I think that LGBTQIA plus rights may be walking along that same path as long as the court maintains its own consistency. So what does it mean? it wasn't just about LGBTQ. If this woman decides because of her artistic creativity skills that she doesn't want to make a website for women, for interracial couples, for minorities, according to this court, that's perfectly okay because the free speech right is the most important variable in all of this. I think they've opened up a huge Pandora's box.
Talking about taking us back decades, affirmative action was struck down yesterday,
Yes, correct.
actually. And Justice Clarence Thomas, affirmative action helped him to get ahead, he was one of the main dissenters.
Look, Clarence Thomas has been after affirmative action and getting rid of it for decades. This has been his mission. There were never the votes to do it. And now, of course, the conservatives are truly reigning supreme, no pun
But
intended.
Justice Roberts also was trying to get rid of it.
And Justice Roberts as well. Justice Roberts, if you remember in 2018 in the Shelby County case, they got rid of one of the key sections of the Voting Rights Act. Roberts has been for years saying, we don't have discrimination problems anymore in this country, in voting, in education.
Does he live in this country?
Just waited. Well, he probably lives a different lifestyle maybe than we do.
Right. I think that's key.
But the bottom point is that he looks at all of this just as we just don't have discrimination, so there's just no need to have these laws anymore. Now, in Shelby County, by the way, he was wrong because since that time, we've seen all of these maps where African Americans shut out of the vote, and even twice this term, the court has had to step in and go, yeah, redo that map. African Americans are entitled to another vote. So he was wrong then. With this situation, look, let's make lemonade out of it. It may very well be that colleges and universities will turn to another factor now, and that's socioeconomic status. So whether you're black, white, otherwise, it may very well be that the universities will look to your economic conditions and what you live through. The other really interesting piece here is that John Roberts said, we're not saying you can't talk about race.
Yeah, you can in your essays. It's okay.
Yeah, and it's okay for the student. What's the
Yeah.
university supposed to do with that? Because they can't consider it.
And no checking of the boxes anymore, right?
No checking of the boxes, but I think here's what has to. This, by the way, Kavanaugh made it clear. This doesn't take effect until 2028, so they've got a little prep time in here. And I think what universities are going to have to do is create a new form so that when they allow certain people in, and somebody claims, but you did do that on race because that kid wrote an essay about race, they're going to have some kind of form, however they do it, that verifies, no, it wasn't there. You see, it's not even on our form. Their points came from elsewhere.
Something else the Supreme Court did was take up the case of a postal worker who said, I can't work on Sundays. The Postal Service went to this Sunday operation here.
Yeah.
What do you think are going to be the ramifications of this ruling?
Interestingly, there was a very similar case years ago in the Supreme Court where it was a woman who was being made to decide, you want your job or do you want to go to church on Sunday? And the court then ordered that you cannot force a person to choose between their religion and their job. So that ruling has already been there. Now they kind of stepped it up and basically said, because it's a little more modern these days with regard, these are postal workers because Amazon uses the post office now. So we all see our postal workers on Sundays delivering packages. And this was the claim saying, I want my religious freedom, government worker. And the court stood behind that saying, you can't make these folks work on Sunday. And so the post office is going to have to make adjustments. Now, whether there won't be Sunday deliveries or whether it will be a sign up if you're willing to deliver on Sunday, we'll see.
Let's talk about the North Carolina redistricting law. That was Tuesday, not very much publicized, but what does this mean now for North Carolina and subsequently other communities?
So I think the reason, Micah, that stayed a bit under the radar is because it's what the court didn't do. The court, that involves something called the independent state legislature theory. And in a nutshell, what it meant, and what it said was, it's this arcane theory from years ago that says, actually, the power to determine maps and to make election laws, it all rests with the legislature. And it's just the way a provision in the Constitution got read, time, place, manner. And they said, and so you see, the court system doesn't even have the power to review these decisions. Now, nobody's ever believed that, but this court took it up. And to their credit, they looked at it and dismissed that theory, saying, no, part of our and actually it is a very Republican value, the checks and balances in our system have to be honored and respected. And so essentially they looked and said, no, the courts can continue to reflect on these state courts, on these maps or election laws and those kinds of things. Had they not gone that way, this could have literally upended our democracy as we know it on its head. And that's not an exaggeration.
Let me hear your thoughts on the tone from President Biden, who spoke from the White House today, put the focus on politics with the Supreme Court rulings,
Right.
said that it was hypocrisy And where do you see this leading here? I mean, did he get much traction with the American voter?
So, look, we're entering election season right now. We all know that last year, the power of the abortion decision really propelled women to vote, propelled people to the polls. Now, we're a distance away from voting. But I think what you're seeing from the president today and what you will see in Democrats going forward is going to be a real push over these decisions today with just, again, turn the clock back so far. Now, conservatives and Republicans, they're kind of happy with these decisions. We'll see how they tout those, but it's been interesting that they've been quiet. Mitch McConnell, who said, well, that Biden loan decision, glad the court did the right thing there, but he didn't have a word to say about the website designer case. So the bottom line to it is I think Republicans have to tread carefully when it comes to some of those social issues because the court is clearly not I should say they're not reflecting the pulse of where the nation is on those issues.
President Biden was in Chicago today.
Yeah.
He decided to, not today, but earlier this week, he decided to talk about Bidenomics. Why did he pick Chicago to do that?
Well, I think, Micah, for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're getting the DNC here, right? We're getting the convention, and so that was one reason to be here. He certainly let J.B. Pritzker know that he loves him, and there'll be a lot of
fundraisers.
Yeah, that's right. There'll be a lot of money, a lot of attention raised, and it was. And I think that message also was not just about Chicago. He's reaching to the other Midwest states, and I think that was even he sort of said Bidenomics. I didn't make up that term. The Wall Street Journal make up that term, but I'll take it. And in many ways, it was just like when Barack Obama took Obamacare. At first, it was meant as an insult, but at the end, they wear it as a badge of honor. And that's what Biden's going to do with Biden economics.
Coming up on your show, you've got some good news with the Rainy Day Fund.
Yeah, so we've got the controller of the state, Susana Mendoza, will join me, who's going to talk about really the strength of the fiscal shape of the state right now. Again, I know Republicans would say we're not part of the discussion, but she is the controller, so she will say there's no backlog and some other issues about how bills are getting paid. Republican Congressman Representative Darren LaHood will join me to talk about Bidenomics and other, we'll get kind of a rebuttal here to some of the Democratic programs. And then Professor Rob Shapiro will talk about these Supreme Court issues. His take is a little bit different than mine on some of these. Mostly we agree, but not on everything. And then next week on Friday, where I do the midday interviews on the Midday Fix, I'll be interviewing investigative reporter David Niewert, who's the author of a book called The Age of Insurrection. It's really a fascinating book. It's at 11:45 on Friday, and I hope our viewers will turn into that. I know you will.
I always do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Happy 4th.
Happy 4th.